there, thank you for joining me on Ferncrafts. I'm Christine and I welcome you to my channel. Today let's look at what's in bloom. So today we're going to be looking at the Bnfd, which is abbreviated as Bnfd, and it's the Gilded Tower Mystic Maze. It has a very complex parentage, which is Brasidium Gilded Erkin crossed with a Vincata, which is the added Glossum Summit. And so I'm sure you're eager to see the flowers. Let's look at that. There. And it is a lovely spike with a few buds yet to open. But I thought I'd share it now because they may be in full bloom by next week, and maybe I'll share it then as well. But they have the spider-like flowers, and this orchids are usually called spider orchids, which is a very tall and long flower spike. And for now, I only have the one spike, but I believe that you could have more than one, but one from each pseudobulb. So right now, this plant only has 3 pseudobulbs, and this is the newest one. And that's where, actually 4, and that's the newest one. Whoops, it's a little hard to see there. And that's where the spike's coming out from. The flowers are apple green, dark brown, almost reddish brown markings on them. Very, very nice markings, and unfortunately not scented, but very pretty to look at. It requires a good medium with good drainage, as well as one that retains moisture, as it does like to be on the moist side. I don't leave the medium overly wet. Actually, I just water her once a week during the winter, and I believe when she was outside, of course, she got a little more water, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. So yeah, it's doing really well. It's liking the temperature indoors. Right now we're getting into the cooler months. It's fall. It's November, guys. It's already November. And yeah, so definitely one easy growing orchid. I find that the Oncidium family of orchids are quite easy for me to grow because of their pseudobulbs, and also the growing patterns are manageable for me. So yeah, that's what's in spike this week. As far as fertilizing, I do give her a weekly fertilizer, which means it's a week solution of fertilizer on a weekly basis, and that seems to work fine for me. So yes, this is what's in bloom for this week. So let's go on to another segment, which is what's in spike. Let's look at that. All right, so I have here a few orchids, and let's start with the one that's in spike, or how do I say this? The one that looks like it'll be the first to bloom, and that's my Vanda. Vanda Panchera Delight. There. I got this orchid in August of 2015, I think. And she's put out spike with right now only 4 buds. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Very dark purple with lovely markings. I will definitely be sharing the flowers with you when they bloom. So yeah, I think it was such a good idea for me to pot up the Vanda, just because it was a little unmanageable for me to have her with her bare root and to be watering her every day. It was just not working out for me, and so for me, potting her up was a good solution. I have her in a nice heavy clay pot because they are top heavy and they need to be stabilized that way. And yeah, it works out. So the medium doesn't stay too moist because of the clay pot. It can breathe, as well as at the same time it does retain some of the moisture, enough for the vanda. So yeah, that's one in spike, not yet in bloom. The next one, it's Miltasia estrellata. I have such a hard time pronouncing these names. Sweet Senorita. And this is one orchid I believe I got just earlier this year, maybe. No, maybe it's summertime. I can't remember actually. But yeah, she's put out one spike. So I'll take that. I'll take that. And these burns on the leaves, totally my fault for having her outside in a very hot spot and got burns on the leaves. Yeah, about one spike, and I'm happy about that too. So I'll definitely be sharing with you as they come. You can see some stress on the leaves with the accordioning of the leaf here, but that was prior to me having her. So I'm okay with the watering. It's just taking the orchids outside last summer was a little bit of a challenge for me, because I had to find different areas in the garden where they would all be happy. And yeah, the gazebo worked out really well, as you can see. Now I'll tell you a little bit about this one. This one doesn't have a label, but I know what it is, sort of generally, that it is an Oncidium dancing ladies. And I've had this orchid for a very long time. It's one of my oldest orchids as part of the collection. It was given to me by my aunt, and I think when I had her first, I probably had just one part of it, like one pseudobulb and one growth off of the pseudobulb, but now she's branched off in like 2-3 different directions. And did I say 3 different directions? Yes, because I now have 3 spikes. There's one right there, and this is much awaited, because yes, I think for like 3 years now I've waited for this orchid to bloom, and finally she did, and not just one but 3 spikes. Okay, so 2 right there, and right there behind, if I can move this leaf out of the way, there, 3 spikes. And I am so looking forward to them, because to me this is what started my orchid collection. It was this orchid really that started it, because until then I didn't know anything besides Phalaenopsis as being orchids. But then I discovered that orchids are such a large family, and they're so beautiful. So yes, 3 spikes on my Oncidium dancing ladies. I will definitely be doing an update on that when she does bloom, and hopefully yeah, well, I'll just wait patiently. I don't know when that'll be. And here, last but not least, is another one. Let me show you the spike. There it is. Okay, there's a spike, and this is on my Wilsonera Guanshin Sweetheart. I've shown this orchid to you a few times, I think, in spike, and yeah, she's done it again. So I really like you can probably see a trend. Most of these are from the Oncidium family, and that's what works for me. It does, and I enjoy them, and you know, it's almost like I'm guaranteed some blooms, which is the reason why we grow these orchids, is to enjoy the blooms. And of course, you know, just having them is also enjoyable. So yes, I really am excited that there are quite a few things on here that I can share in spike. And it's a little tricky in November, especially here where the temperatures fluctuate. It's not always cold, and we get these, you know, in between days when it's pretty warm. Like the past week, it's been over 10 degrees every day, going even up until 20 degrees on a certain day. So it's a little tricky with the temperature indoors, but I'm trying to monitor it as best as I can and keep these orchids in good health. So as always, really appreciate learning things from other orchid growers, and I want to share some of the tips along to you, especially if you're a new orchid grower. And my tip for you today is one very simple ingredient that you can have in your orchid toolkit, and that is ground cinnamon. Doesn't matter the brand, and I think as long as it's good quality cinnamon. What cinnamon is used for is it's an antifungal, and it can really help with cuts and bruises, even for your own skin, but you've got to be careful in how much you put on it, because it does have a tendency to have a burning effect. And the same goes for the orchids. So when you are dusting on cinnamon, like I've had to do with this is my falbalina that I've talked about so much. And this morning again, I found one of the new leaves had some kind of dampening on it, so I just cut it off. I didn't want it to spread any further down, and I have now dusted this orchid with some cinnamon exactly where the cut was, so you can see that. And then I've cleaned up the edges of the leaves just to make it a little more you know, pleasing, I guess, to the eye, and dusted cinnamon on it. So that'll stop the infection, if there is any, from spreading. But at the same time, you want to be careful, because if you get them on your root tips, it'll also burn the root tips and prevent the orchid from growing. So you've got to be a little careful with it, and as long as you don't overdo it, just a light dusting of cinnamon on a cut wherever you cut your orchid. It's a good way of helping it heal faster, drying out any dampness that it may have in that area, and really just a very simple thing to have in your toolkit. Thanks again for watching, and I do join our Facebook group. It's Ferncrafts Love of Orchids, if you haven't already, and do subscribe. You'll be the first to know when I upload a video. So thanks again for watching, and until next time, enjoy your orchids. Bye bye.